Hey everybody, I'll be summarizing The Fourth Turning, which is a book written in the mid-90s by William Strauss and Neil Howe. It explores the generational cycles in American history via its controversial yet plausible ideas. Their theory, popularly known as Strauss-Howe generational theory, proposes that historical events shape generations, and that those generations subsequently shape historical events. The authors use a metaphor of the seasons to describe the cyclical pattern of history, with each turning representing a different season. This interplay between history and generations could be one reason why we so often note that history repeats itself. Or, more accurately, not so much a repetition, but more so a rhyme. These rhymes typically occur in 80 to 100-year cycles, and one obvious example are the major wars that have marked the history of this country. The American Revolution in the 1770s, Civil War 90 years later, and World War II 80 years after that. This book has risen in the public consciousness as we find ourselves in that 80 to 100-year zone after the last major crisis. People inherently seek knowledge about the future and use models like this to find meaning. The fundamental components of gen theory are seasons and generational archetypes. Let's talk about seasons first. Within these 80 to 100-year cycles, which are not coincidentally a healthy human lifespan, there are 4 seasons, each with the length of a 20-year generation. Keep in mind that the authors are boomers and that these titles are overly dramatic. Let's look at each of these seasons in the context of recent history. The last spring, or high, occurred immediately after World War II and featured the baby boom, which is where boomers got their name. Movies like Grease or TV shows like Leave It to Beaver or Happy Days are vivid depictions of the social conformity, innocent culture, and strong family bonds that typified the era. In The Awakening, we saw the coming-of-age boomers rebel against that conformity by engaging in counterculture and social activism. Each generation reacts to the social norms and expectations of the previous era, and therefore a tiring of social discipline would be a logical response. Civil rights, women's rights, and the sexual revolution were all major movements within this period. Millennials are born, Gen Xers are coming of age, and cultural movements such as hip-hop and grunge characterize society's total shift to individualism within the unraveling, or the third turning. With individualism comes the increasing cultural polarity, red versus blue states, rich versus poor, and recalls the previous unraveling during the Roaring '20s. Winter is a time of crisis, when society is challenged by problems that cannot be easily solved. Deepening division and conflict, institutional decay that consistently leads into a major crisis, often in the form of war, and forces a society to either confront or dismiss those problems in order to unify against an existential threat. While this is a time of great uncertainty, it's also a time of incredible opportunity, as the rigid culture of the past 80-plus years will give way to a new springtime of renewal ahead. Let's quickly talk about the 4 generational archetypes: prophet, nomad, hero, and artist. These also repeat and align with the seasons. The most recent example of the prophet generation are the boomers. They're characterized by indulged post-war childhoods, activists for social change, idealistic, passionate, and charismatic leaders, and they inspire others to pursue a higher purpose. Gen Xers, on the other hand, are neglected and are resilient during childhood. They're skeptical of authority and institutions, and are innovators who challenge established norms. They're comfortable with uncertainty and change. Millennials are optimistic and confident, focused on achievement, competition, and desire to make a positive impact. Heroic figures in times of war and unrest, and are natural leaders with a strong sense of responsibility. Finally, artists, raised by Gen Xers with a sense of individualism, creativity, and social idealism. They have a strong sense of identity and desire for authenticity, and often create new cultural expressions that reflect changing values and beliefs of society. And that's my presentation on The Fourth Turning. Check it out.